Hello, welcome to this edition of Dirt Talk with Drake York, and we're at location here at the wonderful Calistoga Speedway for the Louis Vermeil Classic. And look who I found, Mike Larson, father of Kyle Larson. It's good to have you here, Mike.
Thanks, Drake. Thanks for having me.
All right, so what was your first introduction to the sport of racing?
I moved into a new neighborhood in South Sacramento when I was 5 years old, and I started kindergarten like a week later there at the school in our neighborhood, and Tim Green was in my class. And so the next week, my dad took me out to West Capitol Raceway to just go out there, and I bumped into Tim. And I asked him, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "See the purple 00 out there? That's my dad's car." And I was like, "Can I come over and play tomorrow?" So, I mean, that was really what hooked me to begin with. And then in that same neighborhood, my mom went and found me a babysitter, and they had a car, and Leroy Van Conant was their driver. And so Leroy Van Conant is my hero, and that's how I got indoctrinated into racing. And those two people basically just made that connection for me for life. And, I'm still here.
Well, we all know you were a huge race fan before Kyle Andrea came along, and you still were after. Did you ever try to race at all?
Just one season up at Red Bluff. They had that World Formula, old fart division for the dads, and I ran that. I think I won a couple main events though, but really that was the only time that I ever did really compete.
Well, how was that? I mean, we all know Red Bluff's a little fun racetrack.
Yeah, it was fun. In fact, they had a 6-foot trophy race over at Lakeport that I won, which still sticks in Kyle's craw a little bit because the next year, the guy who had won the 125 division the year before, he didn't come back and he didn't return the trophy, but they didn't have my division the next year. So Kyle won the 125 division, and he had to take my trophy home for his 6-foot trophy, which he just hated that because I kind of rubbed it into him that when I won that trophy and I took it home, I kept telling him all year long, I was like, it sure sounds much better to be the World Formula Champion than to just be like a box stop or a 125 champion. And that just used to bug him. And then for him to have to bring that trophy back home and call it his, for a year, he didn't want anything to do with it.
Well, we all know Kyle had all those big wins, NASCAR, all that kind of stuff. But back when he was racing Outlaw karts, how far would you think he would have gone?
Well, I mean, when we started with the Outlaw karts, I had no idea. We were just doing it for fun, and and I'd made a vow at the very beginning that that's all it was going to be. I wasn't going to put any pressure on him or yell at him or anything like that, and just make it fun. But he ran that first season at Red Bluff in the winter there and really didn't do anything. I mean, he set fast time at the last race of the season and got his first top 5 of the season on that last race. And but then when he got to Cycle Land at the first race there, they didn't run the restrictor plates there, and it was like all of a sudden with him having power and a bigger track and all that, I mean, he could just drive by people. And it was kind of like after that first day, it was like, wow, he's got some talent. And then I told my wife that our car is not up to snuff. We had bought a car from the Hearst family because they just lived right around the corner from us, but it was it was like a 125 car, and it was heavier than the box stocks they were making at the time. So anyway, I convinced her that he's going to get frustrated if we don't step it up on the race car because he definitely's got some talent. So anyway, we got a new car for him, and I mean, within a few weeks he won his first main event there at Cycle Land. And but heck, it just kept growing from that. And I don't know. I mean, he won like 130 main events, I think, in 7 years. So, I mean, I don't know how much farther he could have taken it in Outlaw Karts if he would have stuck with it. I'm sure he would have kept on winning. But, I mean, the sprint car opportunities came up, and that, definitely changed the course of his career.
So obviously we see Kyle come back to Outlaw Karts. I know you guys are doing the showcase. I'll talk about that in a minute. But he runs these sprint cars and he runs midgets and that kind of stuff on dirt. Why do you think he comes back to that stuff?
Just because it's the most thrilling kind of racing there is, and I think for guys like him and Tony Stewart and Casey Kane and those guys, they can't get enough. I mean, open wheel dirt racing, no matter really what form it is what those guys live for. NASCAR's great and everything, and I mean, it's cool that Kyle's there, but I think when you break it all down, those guys, in their hearts are dirt racers. I mean, the NASCAR stuff, it helps them be able to do the things that they want to do in dirt racing, although they are committed to the NASCAR side of it. But like I say, it does give them the resources to be able to do the dirt racing on the right scale. And like Kyle, he's very fortunate to have Chip Ganassi as his car owner, because I don't think Tony's probably the only other car owner in NASCAR that would probably let Kyle race sprint cars and midgets. But anyway, with Chip, he's a racer, and he understands the passion that Kyle has for doing that. And so, fortunately, Kyle's still able to get in the dirt cars, whether it's an Outlaw Kart or a midget or a sprint car. And, he does that 25, 35 times a year when you consider the Outlaw Kart races that he runs too. So, I think that's enough to keep Kyle happy because, like I say, that's definitely in his heart still. And honestly, just knowing him, I don't see it changing anytime soon.
So I know you and Janet are very heavily involved with the Kyle Larson Outlaw Kart Showcase. Tell me, how did that first come about?
Well, Troy Hennig, the announcer at Silver Dollar Speedway, who you're very familiar with, he brought it up about 4 years ago, and I think he talked about it with Kyle just barely, briefly, but then he kind of came to me and Janet and said, hey, I kind of pitched something to Kyle, but here's the details that I was thinking about. Could we do a big race out at Cycleland? And so anyway, I just kind of said to him that, yeah, I'm sure there'd be something we could do. So anyway, I remember it was that winter, because I remember Janet and I flew to San Diego and we were driving over to Yuma. Kyle was racing sprint cars over in Yuma. And that's when we just kind of started talking about it, like what would be the best dates, how could we do the format, all those kind of details. And then when we got to Yuma and, got with Kyle, we kind of said, hey, I understand that Troy had mentioned this to you, and here's what Mom and I are thinking. What do you think? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it. Let's start figuring it out. So then, eventually I got back in touch with Troy, and so that we kind of talked about details, and then got a hold of Lowell Morale at Cycleland, and we all kind of kept coming back to the best date would be the Monday and Tuesday, after Calistoga here and prior to the Gold Cup, because then there'd be a lot of people that were on a week-long vacation anyway, and this would kind of fit right in where they could, all the fans could go to Cycleland, and and then we wanted to make it a big event where like the sprint car fans that are here that are going to go to Silver Dollar for the Gold Cup, that they would see a need to stop at Cycleland. So that was kind of the whole idea of getting the World of Outlaw drivers to come in and participate, because then that way you've got the Outlaw Kart crowd, but most of those are competitors. And so, but on an event like this, in order to pay the purse and all that, you need to have fans, outside fans. Yeah. So that's kind of how it came to try to include those guys who, I mean, they were more than willing, and they look at it as a really fun thing to do. And besides, there's a lot of money on the line. Yeah, it pays as much as a lot of sprint car races do. So anyway, I think that's one of the keys to the event, is that it's unique, and you get to see some of these drivers, like the Outlaws, or even like when Stenhouse was there, and Kyle, they're out of their element, their normal element, and then they're taking on the best outlaw kart drivers in the country. And to kind of mix that all together, I think makes a very unique event that has a lot of entertainment value.
Yeah, no question, because as you mentioned earlier, with the Outlaws all coming, maybe sometimes you get some other guys that come along too.
Well, we try to include as many, Northern California sprint car stars as we can too. I mean, it's fortunate. I mean, Sean Becker would be there anyway.
Yeah.
But it's cool to have him too, because like Kyle and I have always said, he's the Steve Kinser of outlaw karts. Mm-hmm. And to, have him there is really big. And then, but to get other ones, Pete Johnston, he's a legend in outlaw karts. He hardly races anymore, but he signs up for this race every year. And then there's others, Buddy Kofoid, and Corey Eliason, and guys like that are with Colby Copeland, who won the first edition of it. Logan Seavey, who's still probably the best outlaw kart driver out there, but he's now finally getting a chance to race midgets on a national level and doing really well at that too. So it's not just the outlaw guys that help promote this thing and bring people to it. There's a lot of not your typical outlaw kart guys, but these guys have name value, and besides that, they're not slouches when they get in these outlaw karts either. I mean, most of them can pick it up pretty darn quick and get out there and run with them.
All right, so what can you tell the fans information wise, how to buy tickets and that kind of stuff for the Outlaw Kart Showcase?
Well, I mean, you could go get all that information at outlawkartshowcase.com. But on Monday and Tuesday, the gates open at noon. I believe it's $20 general admission to get in. I think $10 for kids. Pit passes are $30 both days. Cars should be on the track for hot laps at 5 p.m. both nights. And this year we've split the first 2 years, the whole showcase event basically was on Tuesday, the heat races and everything. But we were having issues with time and all that, so we've kind of split that now, where all the Monday heat races for the opens, they're on Monday. And so Monday will be a full, all the heat races for all three divisions, box stocks, 250s, and opens, will happen on Monday. There's going to be a mystery feature for the opens, which will be a unique event where the guys that are locked into the A, the B, and the C, will pull names out of each of those to get 20 names into our A main event or mystery feature on Monday night. So there is we will have a feature race. And then on Tuesday, it'll just be feature races. Start out with the last chance races for the open division, and then move into the Bs for the box and 250s, and then into the C, B, and A for the opens. And hopefully this year, because we'll be running the 10 open heat races on Monday, we hope to be able to be done before 11 o'clock for sure. It'd be nice, 10:30, 10 o'clock would be a nice goal to have, and that's what we're hoping for.
All right, nice talking to you, Mike, as always. Thanks for being here.
Okay.
Today's show has been presented by Hunt's Race World, who put on, or I should say the Hunt family, who puts on this fabulous event here at Calistoga, and Tommy Herset's Vintage Race Cars.